Welcome everyone. Thanks very much for joining our webinar today. Today's topic is taking control of your permissions in SharePoint. I'd like to introduce Brent Lonesdale, who's the Microsoft MVP. So Brent and I know each other from hanging out in Seattle in the Cheesecake Factory. And um, he's the co-founder of and CEO of Lightning Tools. Lightning Tools have been around for a long time. Many of you, if you've been in the SharePoint space for over the years, will have seen or heard of their products and tools going back to on-prem SharePoint, but now bringing them into SharePoint Online. And There's a broad range of tools. So there's not just the one we're talking about today, but there's a bunch of other ones which are like world class. So if you're interested in learning more, you can catch up with Mel after this. One of the things today, we're running in a webinar format. So if you've got questions, if you could just pop those in the chat. Brett's going to do a demo. It'll be pretty much a demo, no PowerPoint slides. I've got one PowerPoint slide here, which is the only one you'll be seeing today. So I'll give you a little bit of a background on what we're talking about. So anybody that's been around SharePoint permissions for a while will know that you often are more cryptic than the New York Times crossword, and it can be difficult for people to understand permissions in SharePoint, especially if the environment has been around for a while. And there's lots of challenges with that. And one of the big things, though, is that it creates a lot of anxiety around deploying things like Copilot. When you're sharing externally and you've got confidential information that you want to protect, it can be hard to understand who has access. And this generates a whole lot of sort of common help desk type problems that we see coming through our support desk. We get the root cause of those issues is things like individual permissions. So that's where someone's been assigned a permission to a document or to a library or a site directly, not through a group. We have a mixture of ways of applying permissions in SharePoint. We've got sharing links, we've got SharePoint groups, we have Microsoft 365 groups, we can assign Active Directory groups, etc. To SharePoint. So there's more than one way to do permissions, and they're not consistent between the different sites of types, which is awesome. We also have requests from people to give access to someone that is the same as the person that had the role previously. So can you just give that person the same access that this other person's had previously? And that is an easy question to ask and a hard one to do. There's lots of concern across organizations about who can see what and where. And it's really hard with the tools Microsoft provide us to actually answer that question ourselves. It's time consuming and labor intensive. So that leads to a whole lot of hidden costs around permissions in SharePoint. And one of the really big hidden costs is when it comes to doing something like running reporting to be able to see what permissions you have, it's really labor intensive. Like if you're clever, you can do it with PowerShell, but PowerShell scripts can take hours and sometimes days to run in order to be able to get the permission information that you need. And then you've got to try and interpret what it's generated for you, which is, again, not for the faint-hearted. It requires sort of technical knowledge to be able to do. So it's not end-user achievable. It can be really expensive in terms of time and cost to remediate issues with permissions. So getting permissions back to a good known state and then trying to keep them there is a difficult and challenging job that takes a lot of time. Often we want to delegate permissions out to our site owners. It seems like a good idea. Let's give our site owners permission to manage their sites and the content that's in it. For many site owners, it's really something that's not part of their core job. They don't have time to do it. They're often a manager, they're often non-technical, and so they just call IT. And so you end up getting more IT support requests being generated through those types of processes. And as I said, Microsoft gives us some basic tools, but they're a bit clunky. They don't really scale across SharePoint, so you can't get a good view across all of your environment. It's even difficult to get a view just within a site. And so there's got to be a better way, and that is why Brett is here today. So Brett's here to give us a demo of a tool called DeliverPoint. DeliverPoint is an add-on for SharePoint, so it's that you add this to your tenant and it gives you a whole lot of capability, which will be demoed today. So I'll hand over to you, Brett. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Steve. I really appreciate that. So yeah, I'm just going to go through and share my screen now. So hopefully everybody can see that successfully. Um, and yeah, we're going to start off taking a look at permissions from a site owner point of view. So DeliverPoint is a product that is designed for two uh, distinct audiences. One of them is a site owner. And if we just talk about that for a moment, one of the challenges with being a site owner is you have this responsibility of course, building a SharePoint site, designing the layout of the content and so on, but also you've got that responsibility of ensuring that the permissions are handled in an appropriate way within inside the content um, within your document libraries and within your site. And the tools that you get out of the box with Microsoft SharePoint are just not ideal for reporting and managing those permissions, but also the sharing links as well across your site. And of course, this is something that you're not always in control of either. If you create a site and you're running with the default settings, one of the key challenges is anybody with edit permissions can, of course, be sharing content. They can be sharing files and folders. They could also be sharing certain pages within inside the site as well. And then it becomes your responsibility to ensure that those sharing links are being shared with the appropriate people. And the biggest challenge there is the fact that you can only report on one folder at a time or one file at a time. And equally, as Steve pointed out, sometimes it's not clear on how those permissions have been assigned. If they are through maybe a security group at the domain level, you don't have visibility on that. So then we, of course, perhaps consider reassigning permissions as well. And now we get into the realms of duplicate permissions and so on. So what we're going to first of all just take a look at is this SharePoint site. We're wearing the hat of a site owner, and the SharePoint site is human resources, so fairly business critical. We've got things like employment contracts, as you can see, job descriptions, payroll and benefits, and information like that that you would typically find inside of a human resources site. And we're going to start off at the site level. So we do have some misleading information here. SharePoint is telling us there's 10 members, and we may take that for granted and think that yeah, there's only 10 people that have access to this SharePoint site. Whereas if we jump into the site permissions report that SharePoint provides us with, we can see that a different story is being told here. We've actually got M365 groups that are nested inside of SharePoint groups and so on. So it's very difficult to actually tell how these 10 members came about. And even if we were to jump into the advanced permission settings, anybody that grew up with earlier versions of SharePoint your hearts will go warm here when you see this classic page. So we can see, yeah, there's direct permissions being assigned. We've also got people with more than one permission level. We have another group here that wasn't talked about a moment ago called HR contributors. And we've also got nested inside the members group here, a human resources managers group, which is actually created at the domain level as well. And that just cannot be enumerated. So what we're going to take a look at is DeliverPoint and how we can first of all report on the site permissions. And what you'll notice in the top right hand corner is we've got this icon, and that icon is only going to show to anybody that is a site owner or has full control. Easy way to understand it: if you can report on permissions using SharePoint against this site, you'll be able to report on permissions using DeliverPoint for this site. And that may be different, of course, for another site where you're not a site owner and maybe have just edit permissions or something along those lines. So one of the reports we're going to take a look at is this one here called Discover Permissions. And immediately, rather than returning the groups with nested groups, we get a list of people. And that is really critical for somebody that is a site owner. We need to see the people that are permissioned first before seeing the groups that are permissioned, so we can tell whether we recognize these people. Make sure that they are the people within our department or the people that should have access to the content. And we've got the people cards. So if there is anybody that you don't perhaps recognize, we can jump in and take a look at who they may be, who they report to, and so on. And as you scroll down, you'll see that sometimes these names appear slightly differently, like myself here. In fact, I'm listed twice with a different avatar. The one that's in italic font is actually an external account, and that is why it's showing there in an italic font, so that can give me a visual clue that this is an external user and not an internal user within inside my tenant. We have the permissions that are assigned to each of these people. These can be sorted and filtered as well. So if we just want to focus on people with edit permissions, let's say, we can see all of those in one place. And of those people, we can see here how they've been permissioned and how they've received that edit permission within the site. So you'll see various methods where the permissions have been assigned. The one at the very top here, we can see demo user 5 is literally just nested inside the SharePoint group. A bit further down, we have demo user 6 that is inside of the M365 group, which is nested inside the SharePoint group. And as we drill into some of these others, we may also see managers and things like that, which is the security group. So that's enumerating the permissions. And it's key to say that this is also a actionable report as well. So where you see maybe things like direct permissions, as Steve pointed out, one of the things you may want to do is, of course, assign those permissions through the more appropriate way of adding them to a SharePoint group or to an M365 group. So we may want to remove these permissions, and we don't have to go through and find where those permissions are assigned. We can just simply select the row, and from the actions menu here, we can come down to account management, and we can delete those permissions, again, only if you have the permission to do so yourself. And when we're deleting those permissions, not only are we just affecting the site, but we've also got the option of affecting the lists within the site and the folders and the items as well. So there could be multiple folders, nested folders, where the permission inheritance has also been broken. Demo user 12 has been granted permissions to those folders, so we can also take care of those and delete those direct permissions also. And to ensure we're only deleting the direct permissions, we can clear this checkbox that would actually remove the user from the SharePoint groups, and likewise also with the M365 groups as well. As a safety net, we can also support a rollback, and that's something you can turn on by default if you want to. So when I run this operation now, you can see that it is affecting more than just the site. It has gone through and found multiple places. There was offer letters, there was benefit documents, employment contracts, etc., where demo user 12 was actually granted permissions, and it's removed all of those, and they were all direct permissions. We know that because of the report that it's providing me here. So yeah, just jumping back to that Discover Permissions report, we could refresh it as well. And yeah, you'll notice that demo user 12 has now disappeared from my list of users that are permissioned on this site and within the content on this site as well. Steve, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, Brett, I was just a quick comment on that permission tidy up that you were just doing. Like a really common thing that question we get is what happens when a person changes roles in an organization and moves to a different department? And so that's a good example of where you might want to, if they move from HR to finance, for example, you might want to remove their permission from altogether from HR because now it's no longer appropriate.
Absolutely, yeah. So we could delete permissions in that way. And yeah, typically, Steve, if somebody is leaving the department or leaving the organization, one of the things we can also do, rather than just delete the permissions, we can also transfer the permissions to somebody that's going to be replacing their role as well. So again, that can take care of not just we'll add demo user 12 back in here. So I can transfer permissions in this case from demo user 5 to demo user 12. And again, we've got that option of modifying the permissions on the list items as well as the lists. Again, we've got that support rollback option, and we could also switch out the membership of the group as well here. So it's not just taking care of those direct permissions. That could be the M365 groups as well as the SharePoint groups if we want to. So again, performing that operation, we can see that that has gone through and made some mass changes, including some sharing links as well, where demo user 5 was granted those. So once more, if we go through and refresh that report, we can see demo user 12 straight back here again with the appropriate permissions. In fact, in several different places, they're actually members of these groups now. And let's suppose we did make a mistake. We've now got people crying at the help desk because they've lost access to their favorite content. What we can do is just jump here into the job log. We can see there was a transfer permissions job. We can see who created that job and when it was created, and we have that option to roll it back. And you can see here it's actually going through and reassigning those permissions, also adding the user back into those groups, and everything will be back to normal in just a few moments. So if we once again just refresh our report here, we can see, yeah, demo user 5 is straight back in, demo user 12 has once again disappeared, and we're back to normal. Okay, so yeah, this is just acting on the site at the moment. As you can see, the discover permissions. What we want to do now is just jump into some of the content that lives inside of the document libraries. Now, we can actually report across the site and include the content as one report, but more likely what you're going to want to do is go through and select the content that you're concerned about. And so inside this document library, as you can see, we've got some employment contracts. With SharePoint natively, I could come into the manage access option, and that will allow me to look at who's got permissions to the folder. But this is full of employment contracts. So if we go into that, we would actually also have to go into manage access for each employment contract that is within that folder as well, to be sure that there's no sharing links, and also to be sure that the appropriate people are permissioned on that content. As soon as we select more than one employment contract in here, or more than one document, that option to manage access disappears. But what you will see further on down is DeliverPoint. So we have got the discover permissions, we've got sharing link reports, etc., that we can run not just on 2 files, but as many files as you like in theory. If we hit the discover permissions on that, you can see that it's now actually brought back everybody that's permissioned on each of the employment contracts. And if we were to filter, maybe we were interested in one particular user. Let's just filter on that, and that user could be, in this case, demo user 8. And we can see each of the employment contracts there and the permissions that demo user 8 has on each of them. And one thing you may notice is that just 2 of those files are in full color. The rest are dimmed. And the reason for those being dimmed is that they inherit permissions, whereas the ones in full color actually have broken permission inheritance. So that's another indication where permission inheritance is becoming a problem. And again, we can see how those permissions were assigned as well, which is actually through the Active Directory security group here called managers. This is also a report that you could take a snapshot of as well. So from the actions menu, we can export it. We can actually take a physical snapshot, which means that of this content, we want to make sure that these permissions don't change. And if they do, we can always revert back to them at a future stage as well. So we can always compare with the snapshot that we took and revert back at some point in the future. Okay, so that's being selective on content for direct permissions. What we'll jump into now is some sharing links. So again, we could report on sharing links at folder or file level, or we can also run a sharing link report at the site level as well. So this is actually going to look for any sharing links that belong in the site anywhere. And what you can see is it's found 4. We can see again when they were shared and who shared those sharing links. And personally, I think best practice is when we are sharing, we share with people with existing access is the best practice there. And you can see that none of these are actually matching that best practice. We've got a sharing link on offer letters, which was shared with specific people. We can see that one of those people is, again, an external account. It's my Gmail account, plus 2 others. And then we've also got people in the organization, which of course is going to be everybody inside our organization. And we've also got an anyone link in there as well. And some of the challenges here, I know, Steve, you mentioned you've got some customers on the call that are considering Copilot. And of course, when we've got anyone links or people in the organization, Copilot is going to start to serve answers from this content if you have access to it. So one of the things we want to make sure is that we're also using sensitivity labels, which we'll come into in just a moment. This sharing link on the specific people, if I select that one of the things you'll notice is I can also change the settings. So I don't have to remove the sharing link and reassign the sharing link if I do want to make changes. If I just want to drop out Brett Lonsdale from that, I can do and make that change. We could also change down from edit to maybe read. We could block download as well, save that, and those changes will take place immediately. You can see it's gone from contribute to restricted view, and we've got rid of that external user. Likewise, if we wanted to set some expiration dates, we can set those. We could also bulk remove some of these sharing links as well if we no longer want them. So any one links or anything like that, we can get rid of. So that is again running at the site level. If we wanted to be more selective on the content, we could actually go through and run that at the library level as well. So you've got sharing links here. We've also got sharing links on the command bar for the library if we just want to cover that as a source. So running it here on the content, again, it's just going to return that one folder with a sharing link on it. Okay, so the other report that we can run contextual here is a permissions summary report, and this is a great one actually for SharePoint administrators to do. We could run this, and it's going to give us a high-level view of how the permissions are structured inside of this site. You'll notice here we've got 12 unique items. That's 12 items with broken permission inheritance. One sharing link now because I just removed 3 of them. And we've also got a list with broken permission inheritance as well. And each of these we can drill into to see the further detail. Now we have a list of everything with broken permission inheritance. One of the things we might want to do is start to compare the permissions on what they look like between certain files that may be of interest to me. So I can select the site, other content as well, run the comparison report, and it will show me exactly what is going on. What are the differences in the permission sets on each of these items? And sure enough, that has actually just flagged up another concern. We have the everyone except external users group being assigned contribute permissions to the payslip template. So that could be a concern. Again, that's something that we could go through and remove, or we could actually just re-inherit the permissions as well. So we could leave that selected from our actions menu, come to the permissions management, and choose to re-inherit the permissions at that level. So it's now going to be the same as the site. And again, we could do that in bulk if we wanted to. So the permission summary is a useful one. We also have unlabeled files. So something, again, the site owner can perform is something that they also have a responsibility of ensuring that people are labeling the content appropriately. And Microsoft is also making some great efforts here as well. You can now set a default label for a document library. Purview also allows you to assign labels based on a rule, etc. But sometimes still there's going to be missed content. So from time to time, I could run a unlabeled content review, and sure enough, it's found some of those employment contracts. So once again, the risk here is that if some of these employment contracts were accidentally shared with everyone or the anyone link, they are going to start to be served through Copilot, and that could, of course, summarize the information that's inside of an employment contract at that stage. So we can also bulk assign a sensitivity label. We can come down here to information protection, assign a sensitivity label, and simply say that I want to assign the confidential HR only label here. We can give a justification. Let's just put something brief in there. And again, we could support the rollback if we want to. We can either do this now, or we can also do it on a schedule and run that, and that will take care of assigning that sensitivity label to each of those documents. And just to illustrate the point of how easily one of those employment contracts may have been shared, it can be done in error just simply by hitting copy link here. If I do that, you can see I've just created an anyone link. And I may not know as an end user with edit permissions how to get back from that. And the site owner is not necessarily going to see it. So yeah, being able to report on those sharing links, being able to label that content is really powerful. If you are security conscious as a site owner, one of the things you can also do is schedule these reports. So I find this particularly useful myself. I run a monthly sharing link report on the content that I manage, and we can get an email notification when it's ready. So I get a nice little trigger once a month to say, just have a quick look at the sharing links report and make sure that it's the right people that can access my content. So that is still an actionable report as well. It's not just a document attached to an email. You get an email notification that the report is ready, and going into DeliverPoint, we can come into our scheduled reports. So this is the one that I've just triggered, the sharing link report here. These ones have completed, and we can go through and open those up and sure enough see the sharing link reports, and again manage them if we want to from there. So we've got the actions that we can perform against that content. So that's some of the things that you can do here as a site owner contextually within the site. And what we also have the ability to do, either as a site owner or somebody that is a site owner of many sites, is to come into the main DeliverPoint page where you can actually display a tree view, and that tree view shows you all of the site collections that you have at least read access to. And the reason why it's read access is within inside those site collections could be a site, a subsite or a folder where you have full control. So this is allowing us to navigate to that content, and once we've navigated to the content, we can perform the permission reports on it. But what I want to show you here is how we can actually select this entire site collection. I may choose to select other site collections as well, and you can see my scope changing to these site collections, and then we can produce permission reports that span multiple site collections as well. So if there's something specific that we're looking for, we can maybe run an advanced discover permissions, which allows me to pre-filter it on many different things. We can look for specific people, we could look for certain permission levels that are assigned, or maybe look for disabled users inside our organization as disabled at the Active Directory level, or even external users, etc. So you can set the filter there, and then we can choose whether or not we want to include down to the items with unique permissions. We can also show sensitivity labels. We can show the folder structure, which is also useful to understand where the content resides, and then hit generate, and it's going to go through each of the site collections that I selected. So you can see there's 395 lists there that we're iterating through in 54 sites, and that is going to go through and hopefully in a moment give me a useful report of all that content. So these are the site permissions that we can navigate through, the list permissions, and again, it's only including the lists with unique permissions, and likewise with items. So we've got a lot of that content that again we can sort and filter, or even export if we want to take a snapshot. Correct, that would have taken hours running that with PowerShell. And yeah, you can get that export into Excel if you wanted to manipulate it a little bit more as well. Okay, so that's discover permissions. You've also got on there sharing links as well. We can run that unique objects report. Also, from here, if you don't want to drill into entire site collections, you can actually search for the site collections that you want to look at. So I'm just going to let's do a search on sales here. There we go. So so with inside Lightning Tools sales, as we expand that, we can start to drill into the site collection to see subsites and lists and libraries. And once again, we can see where the permission inheritance is unique and where it's not. So I might decide that I'm just going to select those with unique permissions, which we can tell based on the icon again, and run our permission report on that content, which could be a compare permissions, or again, a discover permissions. Let's run a comparison. You can see how useful that comparison report is here, where we've got each of those objects and the differences between them. Okay, so yeah, that's some of the permission reporting. We've also seen some of the actions that we can perform as well. So transferring permissions, deleting permissions, etc. Permission inheritance. We've seen the assigning of sensitivity labels. One of the other things we've not touched on yet is the ability to audit permissions as well. So auditing is extremely powerful because, of course, permissions may have changed. When we're running a permission report in real time, like we are doing here, it's going to show us as they are right now. It's not going to show us how they were perhaps a week ago and who changed what during that period of time. So we can select a site collection, and from this schedule option here, we can come down to auditing, and I can tell this to audit permission changes, and we can give it a time frame that we want to audit the permission changes for. This is using Purview. So you do need to be a compliance administrator to use this feature. But once we set that up, you will notice that we can audit site permission changes, list permission changes, item permission changes, even group membership changes, and sensitivity label changes, and so on. So we just hit generate, and that will start to accumulate that information. If we want to go through and have a look at one that's already been performed, we can go into the activity audit reports, and there's the permission change report that I'm going to run. And you can see here we've got a list of within whatever time frame that was set to, we can see which users have been granting permissions and who they've been granting permissions to. We also have any permission inheritance changes as well. So who broke permission inheritance and who re-inherited permission inheritance. We have the sharing link changes that were performed. And we also have any group membership changes as well that are all captured. And that's not just using DeliverPoint to make those changes. It doesn't matter whether you use PowerShell, whether you used another API, or whether you were performing those changes using SharePoint natively. All of that information would be captured inside that report. Another report I'll just give you a bit of background on, and that's the link usage. One of the things we could actually do, which is a big concern again when you're using Copilot, is anything that's been overshared using anyone links or people inside the organization, or even everyone except external user groups. So again, we could span multiple site collections if we want to. And from the reports menu here, we can come down to quick reports, and notice how we've got the anyone sharing links and the everyone permission changes. So the anyone sharing link report is actually looking for multiple scenarios. We're looking for anybody with the link can read and anybody with the link can edit, with or without a password, effectively. And as we generate that, it will go through those site collections, and sure enough, it's found one on an employment contract. We can see that there's contribute permissions given to everybody through that anyone link. So you literally don't have to authenticate in order to see that. So we could use that and remove that sharing link immediately. And that's just saved us from going through 3 site collections and all of the content in order to be able to find an anyone link. And like I say, the same thing could be done on the everyone permissions. So this is looking for those everyone except external user groups. You've seen how we're enumerating the members of security groups. We don't need to do that for the everyone group. So you can turn off the enumeration of those groups by using this option here. We just need to see that the everyone group has been assigned permissions because we know that it's going to contain, of course, everyone. And yeah, these are all the places where the everyone group has been permissioned within inside these 3 site collections as well. So once again, something that we can easily just simply go through and remove. So if we want to delete those, we can ensure that we're going to support the rollback just in case anybody complains about this. Run that, and oh, that one did actually interrupt. I don't know why, but yeah, sometimes the jobs will stop. You can actually get them to stop rather than continue, but that's something I could maybe deselect and run it. Wouldn't be a real demo if there wasn't something like that occurring. So, but yeah, that's the ability to report on anyone links and everyone permissions. Now, one of the reasons why I gave that background, coming down to the auditing, if we did find there was something that had been overshared, there was maybe an anyone link on it, your next question is typically, has there been any damage done? Has anybody visited that link? We could actually run this ourselves from any sharing link report. If I just run a sharing link report here on that site collection, so we've found one. If we selected that, we could come up here to the schedule option and run a sharing link usage report. So you can give it the time frame that you want to look at, and I would recommend running that from the date time that it was shared. So we could go back that far and just generate that. And what it's going to do is create that report for us, and we'll see if anybody actually used that link to view the content. So we've perhaps still got a non-conformity where something was overshared, but if there's no harm done, we've got that reassurance, and we can just simply go through and remove that link, and we're good. But yeah, coming into the activity audit report, you can see that one's currently getting ready to go. This one here I performed earlier, but yeah, it actually didn't have any usage, so that's great. We could go through and remove safely that anyone link, knowing that there's no harm done there. Otherwise, we'd see a list of people that did visit that. Okay, so there's lots and lots of things to talk about. I'm just keeping half an eye on the time here. Steve, did you want to open up for some questions, or carry on for a moment longer?
Yeah. If anybody's got any questions, if you want to pop them into the chat, and we can try and answer those for you. But I've probably got a couple, Brett, just that have sprung to mind as we've been going through. One is about the applying sensitivity labels. And does that require E5 licensing to do that, or is that something that's achievable with E3?
Yeah, you would require the E5 license.
Yeah.
To perform that, yeah. And
Yes,
if you didn't have it, you're not going to see the option as well.
Yeah.
So that would be trimmed out
Yeah.
as well.
Right. And I guess the other one was just the going back to that external sharing, like did someone click the link question? I've had this actually happen in real life just recently with a client where a spreadsheet was accidentally shared out to a lot of people containing some information that they didn't want those people to read because they sent it to a group. So the process that we had to go through was remove the link and then go back through the audit logs manually to do the process. And I can tell you it was a lot longer than the effort you just showed to do that
Yeah.
fast. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that can be extremely painful doing that manually. But.
Yeah. Very. And also high anxiety, high up in the organization as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is another use case here would be actually what I want to apply new permissions to existing sites. So I've got a bunch of sites that I actually want to go and apply new access to. So for example, you're going live with an intranet and you've got a bunch of sites, you want to make sure that those intranet sites have all the correct permissions assigned.
Yeah, and that's actually a great question. So we can grant permissions either effectively through SharePoint groups, or you can apply direct permissions, maybe to some security groups and so on as well. There's a lot of time to be saved, especially if you're now using things like hub sites and associated sites and so on too. So the reason why I pick on that one, rather than a classic site collection, is each hub site and associated site has its own access control list, of course. So one of the things we might do using SharePoint natively is try to figure out where are all the associated sites, navigate to them, grant the appropriate permissions, and so on. What I have here is actually the hub called Lightning Tools Software, and a number of associated sites are stacked beneath that, so we can see what is associated with the hub. And if I was to go through and grant permissions, we could grant permissions to a specific user. So we just pick onto demo user 15 here, and I could either add them to groups or yeah, we could give them a direct permission, which I've just said that's a really bad thing to do. But the point that I'm trying to make here is this option where I can process the associated sites. So I don't need to go through and even select or navigate to each of those sites. We can just check that box, and those permissions would be granted to each one, saving me that time as well.
Yeah.
Equally, that could be a security group that I'm granting permissions to. And yeah, if we did want to, if we just deselect that, so this is Lightning Tool software, I could add either demo user 15 to Lightning Tool software here. So you'll notice that we get that
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah,
drop down.
that's nice because
So
it
we can choose the
actually helps you do the right thing, doesn't it? Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So we can ideally add them to the appropriate group and not give them a direct role in that way.
I've got a couple of questions that have come through. One's first one. I'm going to start with
Okay.
Jeremy. Jeremy's question is: some of my site owners will probably prefer to review permissions via a static report, e.g., a PDF. Can DeliverPoint email a soft copy report, or is it just a link back to the online platform?
Yeah, so great question actually, and one of the nice things here, let's just assume that you've got somebody that is a site owner, but they may not be that technical. You just want them to review the content. Yeah, we could either, if we use the human resources site, for example, I could schedule a permission report on behalf of that user. So it could be a sharing link report or a discover permissions report, etc., or even a list of external users. So run that report. We can specify an email to be sent, and we can schedule that on behalf of the user, and that could be the owners group as well that we're adding there. So they will receive a link to the report. Again, it is an actionable report, but attached to that email will also be not a PDF, but an Excel copy of the permissions as well. So they could go through the Excel document and yeah, review the permissions there if need be. So you have got that option. Just a slight variation on that answer as well. I'm just going to come into the accounts view here. I'm going to pick on Sandy, who I just noticed is also on the call. Otherwise, I won't be picking on her. But if I choose Sandy here and go to the report menu, what I could do is have a look at all of the site collections that Sandy is the owner of. So enumerating through all my site collections, determining any that she does own. So it's found them all. You can see there's numerous teams here and classic site collections and so on. She's a bit trigger happy when it comes to creating site collections. Yeah, what we could do there is actually start getting her to review some of those from this point. Simply selecting them, and again, that could be the trigger to schedule those reports from that point of view. Thank you, Christine.
We've got another question. So the question is from Bruce. It's about what infrastructure is required to support the tool, if any, servers, databases, etc.
Great question. So the whole product is developed under the SharePoint framework. So there's a number of SharePoint extensions, SharePoint application or SPFX application pages and web parts and so on that bring this product together. It's running within the context of the current user. It's deployed via the app catalog, and it's calling the Graph API, the client-side object model, in order to be able to produce the reports and allow the actions to be performed that you can see here. So everything is best practice using the SharePoint framework as Microsoft intends, using the API that they provide, and yeah, there's nothing running externally to your Microsoft 365 tenant. It's all running within it. So there's no processing or storage of your data outside of your tenant. It's all right there. The only time there is anything that is not live is when you schedule a permission report. That's using a function, an Azure function that is also deployed to your environment to trigger that on the schedule, and that then, of course, stores the snapshot of that information within inside a hidden library so that you can produce those reports as well. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Brent.
No problem. I think I saw another question as well about how long it takes for the SharePoint permissions to take effect. That was in the Q&A panel.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, again, we're using the API. So when you do assign permissions, they are assigned immediately. And when you remove permissions, they're removed immediately. Yeah, as you see it on the screen, it is happening in real time to make those changes.
Which is why the rollback feature is quite handy.
Yes, yes.
we've all been there, haven't we?
Exactly right.
Even Mel the other day when she thought she'd accidentally done something to 100 people.
Yep. Absolutely. Wonderful.
Are there any other questions? If not, we'll wrap up here. But Brett, thanks very much for staying up late for us. Brett's I forgot to mention at the beginning, he's joined us from the UK. He lives in Rugby.
That's right. Yeah, where the game was
Yeah.
invented.
So
And you're better
so
than this.
yeah. which is great because we live in the city with the greatest rugby team in the country. So that's nice connection there. Yeah, thanks very much for your time today, Brett. As I mentioned at the beginning, this session is recorded, and we'll pop the recording up on our YouTube later. So we'll share that link out. So if you want to refer back to it, and if you've got any questions or about DeliverPoint or the things we've seen today, if you just reach out to Mel, and she will be happy to help answer those questions or connect you with the right people. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, Mel. Really appreciate the time here. So, and thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you all.